The next, so you most of you must have heard this term, right? DevSecOps. So DevSecOps is basically trying to build trying to build security in the development phase of your system. So all said and done, DevSecOps is more about culture rather than employing a particular tool in it. As a startup, of course, we cannot enforce all the strict security standards, because we also have to work with that pace of delivering more features and catering to clients in the limited bandwidth we have. So at your technical level, you need to find a balance between security and the developer flexibility. How much is it that you want to focus on security, and how much do you want to be flexible with your developers, so that it doesn't really become a big hindrance to them. One of the common cases that I've seen, which doesn't which always seems to be after a few months a waste of time, is people deploy a lot of code source code scanners. Initially, all the teams are very strict about it. They start checking that there are no vulnerabilities in it, but after a point, everybody just stops look and just starts ignoring the results of the source code scanner. And the problem with that, and that's not really a developer problem, I feel, because the problem with source code scanners is they don't have a lot of business context of what your code is supposed to do. And at the same time, the amount of data that it generates, right, the amount of vulnerabilities it throws, it's almost impossible for any of the organization or team to keep on working on fixing it. So now, how do you deal with this? The first one is you use these basic security plugins in GitHub to at least check for the dependency vulnerability. What I mean by that is any of the vulnerabilities in some of the packages that you may be using, for example, in Node or in Python or in Ruby on Rails. So just checking for any of the dependency vulnerabilities would be far more useful and impactful as of them. Securing your CI/CD pipeline is extremely essential. Some of the companies, they give full access to their CI/CDs to go into the EC2 instance and or their compute engines and deploy. Now you need this kind of a feature because this just greatly simplifies your deployment. But what you need to make sure is that your CI/CD pipeline or your CI/CD server, let's say you're using Jenkins, is itself not a public server. Because if that is a public server, underneath you're already leaking your private keys to that EC2 machine. So make sure that at least your CI/CD pipeline is secured, and only again those people who are responsible for the deployment and release of your product, only those people have access to those Jenkins or any of the CI/CD pipelines that are using. I cannot stress enough how important CI/CD is, securing your CI/CD is, because bunch of the data leak or bunch of the leaks of your security keys or username and passwords happen through this layer, because almost every organization puts in all of their credentials inside their CI/CD for the overall simplification of their development. So securing CI/CD is extremely essential. And the next is just training your employees, so you don't have to keep like extremely comprehensive sessions, but remember just some sort of notifications once in a while for them, to make sure that they are not clicking on some phishing emails, or they are just aware that these kind of phishing or spam attempts are happening. Just being aware of them will keep these things in their subconscious mind. So at least that increases your chance that the employees don't fall prey to it, because most of the attacks are social engineering attacks. If you look at Uber, if you look at Twitter, all of the data leak that had happened was because of social engineering attack. Uber recently got like massively breached, where almost everything inside Uber, right from their compute engines to even their Slack channels, right, everything was compromised. The actor was basically publishing messages in Uber's Slack channel, and all of this was purely through a social engineering attack, where one of the employees, the guy was able to get his core credentials through the employees, and later on just escalated everything. So just making your employees aware that these kind of attacks are happening, you need to be careful about it. I think that will go definitely go a long way.